evening or afternoon. It's Charles Cockshoot here from VMware. I'm an Edge architect in the business unit, and with me today is Marilyn.
Hey everyone, Marilyn Basanta here. I am run all of our product management for our Edge Compute products here at VMware.
Thanks, Marilyn. And I'm responsible for Edge architecture, in specifically the mobile Edge project, which we'll be talking about in a bit more detail today. So thanks for joining, thanks for listening. If you've got questions or comments, please pop them in the box and we will respond live. Thank you very much. So just shifting on. So this project came out of work with emergency responders in the UK. And the focus very much was on dealing with a number of operational challenges they had whilst they're in vehicles. So the first was, as we all know, there's a lot of data out there that's been collected by responders now, be it in-vehicle cameras, be it body-worn cameras, or evidence from bystanders that's collected through devices for forensics and loading up into case systems, as evidence. What they're finding that all this data typically came with its own connectivity, and this connectivity wasn't always on and wasn't always wide enough, robust enough. Pipes weren't big enough to provide what they needed. As such, there was still the case that quite often that data wasn't offloaded until it was taken back to the base. So if the car went back to the police station, only then would it be, let's call it sneakerware or USB, where it would be taken, transferred. So that was causing a couple of problems. It was causing an issue with the urgency. So it could be 7 days or more before something is transferred from that vehicle before. For evidence that is collected, it may be a while before members of the public get their devices back, which again, causes barriers. And just the sheer volume of data that has been captured means ideally you want to be able to process it, mark it as needed, and stream it and get it up into case systems as quick as possible. And the final impact it was having is, we've got some photos later we can show you, is the operational impact in terms of weight. Every new solution in the car was having its own piece of hardware. What that means is the back of the cars look like Tetrises, where you're trying to fit in different pieces of hardware that are all doing one application. And that adds to weight. That causes problems where they have to take the fifth seat out of the car. And it also adds to the wear and tear of the vehicle and extended maintenance periods. So the goal here was to, absolutely help the officers in their day job, simplify and consolidate things, and generally just help modernize the approach to technology in cars. So as this slide shows, there's a bit of an as-is and cluttered view here. There's lots of proprietary hardware in here, all doing one job at a time, providing connectivity and routing and networking. Quite often we saw different unique connectivity, sometimes 6 or 7 different SIM cards and connections in a car, rather than it being aggregated and shared. And as I've already said, that weight and the storage becomes a premium. So there's actually powering all of this. So again, it's a similar problem space that VMware has solved, but maybe not in the back of police cars in data centers. So how we've addressed this is by making use of a couple of VMware solutions. And this originally came from one of the police forces that was using our Edge services, the SD-WAN, in their offices, and said, this is great. Could you take that technology, extend the management, extend the offering there into the cars, but also add in some compute capability? And I'll just hand over to Marilyn, who can take us through that broader platform and offering that we have and the Edge vision at VMware.
Yeah, so like Chaz said, we worked closely to kind of prototype this and get this going with one of our customers, and now we're properly productizing our solution here for mobile edge. And one thing I'll also just add that I kept wanting to chime in, Chaz, was about think about like all of that hardware that is added to that police car after the car is sold. Like if we could help them simplify this, which we'll talk about with the solution, then they can also get those cars up and running and out much quicker, because I think they said it takes them 9 months to outfit a car or something along those lines. Like it's quite a significant time for them to just get the car ready today. And so anything we can do to help it easier to load on new apps, to do new use cases, to do this seamless connectivity is really exciting with our platform, which really works well with our overall edge compute vision at VMware. So on this slide, you can think of this as like our vision in a high level way, in terms of we've got our product edge compute stack that we now launched not quite, but a year and a half, a little bit more, year and 3/4. So and that's how long Chaz and I have been working together. So thanks, Chaz. Chaz was here with me from the beginning. And so our edge compute stack offering has evolved quite a bit. But overall, like we've got 2 offerings, which we'll talk about later. But you can think of that as like the core infrastructure and software that you need to actually run the apps, right? Whether it's in the police car or at a grocery store or manufacturing. We have our common orchestration and management plane. And then you can see the next layer of services. So what we mean with services in this particular use case, we're taking advantage of our SD-WAN product. We're taking advantage of the modems and the connectivity. But ideally, we want to be able to do things like inferencing directly. If we've got that compute in the police car, we want to be able to take that video and run an inference on the app and maybe quickly, signal out cars of interest, people of interest, anything that could help the police force make real-time decision-making that'll hopefully keep us safer. But what I mean by services is, anything needed to help these apps solve their business case, but also not just VMware services, but third-party services. So in the case of this mobile solution, we're working with a partner, and they have their own apps they're providing to the police force. So we want to make sure that our platform can run these services from our ISVs that actually enable the complete solution for law enforcement, or like I said, for manufacturing or retail. And at the top is really the edge native workloads. So edge native is kind of the term that the CNCF and all of us have contributed to defining on what are the different attributes of these apps at the edge. A lot of the times these are line of business apps. We're solving real-time decision-making, immersive experiences. It's how can we take all that data that we have at the edge, or in this case in the police car, and help them make new decisions, new outcomes, and things like that. So when I think of our product vision, I think of we're optimizing our core VMware products for the infrastructure. We're building our own services to help enable the apps, as well as filling out our ecosystem to run their services on our platform. And then you have the apps that we also can help with our VMware data products like RabbitMQ or TNZ Application Manager. We can help you with our comprehensive suite of products to create these edge native apps.
Thanks, Marilyn. And modernizing those apps is really part of the journey as well. Typically today, and this isn't just unique in police cars and vehicles, apps quite often at the edge are using the whole of the device. They're using a full OS. They're using full-size databases. Why? Because they're making use of a whole device. As we see more and more technology, more and more use cases and processes at the edge, shifting those to containers absolutely makes sense. There's more abstraction. More teams can work in the same space. You can get smaller footprints and smaller and the pipelines out to them. So again, this is something we're looking at, because at the end of the day, you just want enough footprint for the app to run, and then you want shared services, which is the ask we're having across the board in the edge space. So I'm just going to jump slightly into the solution, and then we'll go back and talk about some of the components that we're using. So you see on this slide, we have our SD-WAN technology providing connectivity, but also device edge, which is a new offering from VMware, a device edge compute stack. So on this slide, I'm just putting it all together in a visual, and we have some more graphics that we've used at the Mobile World Conference that we can step through. But the goal here is to provide, as we've said, a compute platform on ruggedized hardware, vehicle-specific hardware, to be clear, rather than just the broader category of ruggedized. That means it understands the ignition systems. It can cope with graceful power down. So we're using hardware that's familiar to the fleet services in the UK and elsewhere. On that, we have edge compute stack that's providing the abstraction layer, and then we can run applications and push these down through centralized orchestration, a virtual version of our SD-WAN technology. license plate recognition, automatic number plate or automatic license plate recognition is the app that we've been working with one of our partners, Genoptic, and other camera and future systems as telematics, data capture, as I've already talked about. But the goal here is to provide connectivity and also consolidation in terms of the amount of hardware and the amount of tech stack that's needed in the car to deliver those services. At the end of the day, it's all about the services. And again, we've got some reinforcement on this slide about enabling use cases, modernizing the approach, and helping reduce all that weight and fuel cost. At the end of the day, we need Edge is very much about right sizing technology. If I just jump ahead. So the goal is to take you from where you saw on the left, that as is Tetris of lots of technology, to the 2B. This is a shot from Mobile World Conference where we worked with our partner, and we'll show a bit more of this in a minute, and had the pilot running in the car there, which shows it all. So into Edge Compute Stack, which is the component providing the layer. There's some, if you know VMware, there's some very familiar words on this slide around consolidation, consistent management, reducing security. If you're not new to VMware, this is our value prop. Our value prop is providing platforms upon which you can run your business, run all the applications. What's different, if you know us from the world of cloud and data centers at the edge, is on the left-hand side, you'll see that Edge comes in lots of different sizes and lots of different requirements. And it's very vertical specific, and it's often very use case specific. So quite often, given the multiples of vehicles or sites, you need to get the hardware right for economic reasons, as well as footprint, power consumption, noise, and lots of other requirements. So we're providing that same management, that same sharing of resources across the board, but also, as Marilyn's mentioned, supporting some of these newer use cases that we're seeing, like computer vision driven ones and other analytics. Anything you want to add on that slide, Marilyn?
No, I think just to kind of reinforce what you said, so Edge Compute Stack, when we started, it was us looking at, what are the best bits we've got in VMware and what can we do to tailor this for the edge. But I just want to stress that Edge Compute Stack really, especially over these exciting 18 months that me and Chaz have been working on the product, is that we've properly building a purpose-built platform for the edge. So although VMware is famous for our data center products and our hybrid cloud offerings, we really are focusing on developing exactly what we need for the edge. And as Chaz says, the focus really is around your businesses, or what are being, your business is happening at the edge, for retailers, your stores are your business, for manufacturing, your plants are your business, for the law enforcement, safety in the police cars, that is your actual core business. And so we know that there's so much data, and how do we build a proper platform, as I keep saying, that enables these new critical use cases, these new modern apps, and giving you all the tools you need to make it easy for you as a customer, our partners as the full ecosystem provider, to provide that full solution for the edge that really is verticalized.
Cheers. So we'll just do one more drill down into the offerings again to help people who may know VMware or may not. Enterprise Edge is based on, whenever we show this this information, it's very tempting to drill into the technology. I'm going to do it the right way and actually start on the right hand side and talk about the use cases, because as we've just said, it's all about being use case driven. So what we find is the Edge is coming in lots of sizes, but we can, for this purpose, we'll group them into two. One is where you need resiliency. You're running in trusted environments, so that might be a factory floor or large grocer or such like, where you may have multiple workloads, as I've said, a need for resilience. And you can see the typical examples there, and maybe some real-time requirements. The good work we've been doing in our business unit in telco is now being applied to manufacturing and elsewhere, that where we can run virtualized PLCs and telco RAN and really deliver real-time use cases in that virtualized environment. And also sharing of modern technology such as GPUs. So that's using some of the technology you're familiar with, like vSphere, our HCI storage, vSAN. So you might ask, what's device edge and why device edge? So the requirement for this really came from people coming back to VMware around the management. We said we want management, we want consistency, we want centralized control. And it's the view is, you take a typical manufacturer, they might use us in the cloud or the data center. They use us in the equipment room and the plant room. Well, what happens when you get down to smaller individual use cases? Maybe a sensor on a tank, or a crane that needs connectivity, or the wind turbine is always a good one for telemetrics. That's a real use case we've worked on. So, the view was we needed to get smaller. We needed to support those more, small box device type chipsets. And also we need to support a lot more I/O. So by I/O, I mean the manufacturing I/O, COM ports, pass-throughs, cameras, automotive inputs. And also have it work in untrusted environments. So by untrusted, I mean you can genuinely ship this kind of thing to an oil rig, put it in a car, put it in a quick service restaurant, connect it over the open internet, and then secure it. So no credentials, using TPM, security from the ground up, and cloud orchestrate it. So this is extending what we've always done, but to a smaller footprint, that untrusted space, and also providing orchestration. So that's what Device Edge is, and that's what we built the Mobile Edge technology on. Rather than drill down on this slide, I think Raoul will just show it if we've got time live, but this is a slide that's showing we can provide the zero-touch provisioning. That's in common with we also do for our SD-WAN today, our technology, cloud orchestration, and then the ability to push those apps and life cycle, be it the apps, containers, and the platform itself. And the good thing is, the technology we're using here has a very small footprint. It's based on LF Edge work that we're doing. And if I get technical for a sec, this gets down to 1 core required, 0.5 gig of RAM, and 0.5 gig of storage. So it generally is a small footprint that then leaves room for all those use cases. 2 more slides on the technical, and then we'll jump back into the use case. Edge hardware is getting right-sized as well. Here's some examples of some of the vendors we're working. It's not exclusive, but you'll see there's been good work out there in getting the right footprint right and dealing with all those environmental, noise, power consumption, whatever. If we just drill in and focus on this right-hand side, this is the kind of hardware we're using for Device Edge. The Mobile Edge piece is currently using a Nexcom box. I've got here one on my desk, and when we take the filter off in a minute, I'll show you one. That can support up to 4 modems and connectivity. So it's really a connectivity focused box with enough cores left over for compute. Similarly, Advantech, Supermicro, and others. These are all designed for harsh industrial environments, and they are all. And what it now allows us to do is unlock, in a portfolio, the single management plane, the single ability to push apps regardless of where they are, DC, cloud, or edge. So jumping back to the solution, a couple of things we're actually hosting on the Mobile Edge. So these examples are part of a demonstration we had at Mobile World Conference. So the first that we've enabled working with our partner Genoptic is license plate recognition, or number plate recognition in the UK. So typically what's happening here is you have cameras around the vehicle, and they're scanning and looking for vehicles that are on a hot list, is the best way to describe it. They've been tagged for one reason or other. And a couple of things are happening. One is there is a check to the compute or the application in the vehicle, a known list there. Second, once that's done, there is a call. There's a 3-second response required back to the back office to look for supplementary data, perhaps confirm that the color and the vehicle make and model match, or where's this vehicle last been seen. So it's really about 2 things. It's one, about providing that cloud service to make sure the data is being synced down. The second is around making sure that there's connectivity there, be it in urban areas or out in the countries where, where the connectivity may not be good enough, and making sure that the information is needed to do the job. If we then broaden it out, as we talked about on the first slide, this having that connectivity, having a Wi-Fi 6 bubble in the car that's providing, solves that chicken and egg problem of, we've always had constrained connectivity and constrained compute, so we've designed to those paradigm, to that focus area. What this now opens up is a lot of other use cases and a lot of other ability, and it allows the officers to take tasks that they'd typically be doing out in the, maybe have to go back to the office and do, and perform those whilst on the road, whilst they're in the community. So it has benefits all along. It allows them to complete a job to completion and to people's satisfaction. It allows them to spend more time on the road and out serving the community. Last slide on this one is just an overlay of the view earlier, or exploding again, showing technically what we've got in there. So as we said, we've got that abstraction being provided by the LF Edge. We have multiple modems in there, so either from a single provider or dual providers. We have networking for other devices in the car and the Wi-Fi access, and then we have the ability to host the applications across the board. So this is the solution. It's not just applicable to the emergency response world. I think if I jump to this slide and then we'll have a bit of a conversation. When we showed this at Mobile World Conference earlier this year, there's our partner's card, Genoptic, provided. It's marked up. The amount of interest it took. I mean, what's the best way to describe it, Marilyn? I think it.
I mean, Mobile Congress always has a ton of attendees, and especially this year, it was a busy event, but this card definitely drew so much more attention than poor Chaz and us we were expecting. And I think we were talking nonstop during the event. Everyone wanted to come in, and I'm sure it's partly because it's a Tesla and partly because of what's interesting with the law enforcement and the story. And it was just like we want to tell the story. People just would love to sit in it, and they could see like the Genoptic apps, they can see like the camera feeds, and it was decked out with all of the different response buttons for the police officer. And at one point, Chaz and I were in the back doing a meeting while someone else was out on the floor, and all we could hear is Chaz had to run out to like stop the car from going off because someone had double tapped the emergency button. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, so our partner uses this, or Genoptic use this to test out equipment with police forces and emergency responders. And you're right, the Tesla is there to draw attention, attract attention. Sorry, and it also opens up that debate about use of electric cars, the in-car entertainment, and the way everything is presented in screens. That also unlocks good conversations, because just like we're talking about consolidating the systems, the officers that came around and had a look, we were quite popular with the local forces, absolutely wanted to understand how, they can simplify the in-car experience as well. So single devices, I know I'm jumping around, I'll put it back on this one as we talk. But, the more that can be integrated into these cars, in-car entertainment systems, the screens that are already in the vehicles, the more space there is for officers to use it as a normal car and do their job, rather than have additional screens and keyboards. I've even seen one force use a screen in a visor. That's how much you're really looking for real estate in these cars. So again, this is a space where standardization, simplification, application of technology really has a place to play. And as I said, garnered a lot of attention, opened up discussions about a number of use cases. I'll be pleased to say, our execs as well enjoyed taking a look at it and being taken through it. So it really has opened up a lot of potential, where people are talking to us about different applications and how we can help them. And I think Marilyn mentioned this earlier. It's not just about, if I stop the screen share for a second, it's not just about the platform, it is very much about the applications and the use cases and what we can unlock, and also how we can help make these applications edge native. So this phrase has been around for a couple of years, I believe, Marilyn, that's fair to say. And it's really dealing with the fact that cloud native has unlocked the agility, but it came with the assumption that resource is unlimited. And that was one of the enablers. I can have unlimited compute. I can spin up load balancers when I need. I can do this. I can just scale every time you or I use Gmail, for example, a container's spun up or a shopping basket, and then it's destroyed. That's great. And it has unlocked so much agility. Taking those patterns and applying them at the edge requires some thought, because number one, you haven't got unlimited resources. So we talk about things like scale down to 0, switching things off when they're not needed, so there's no resource. Things disconnect. Things need to be distributed. So there's a lot of work we've been doing in our Tanzu portfolio, which is part of this, our container runtime piece, and the associated tools and solution components, repositories, CDCI, that we've been applying to help these apps really work and be robust at scale, which is really what everyone's looking for. Isn't that fair to say, Marilyn? Like, innovation is great, and it's great in seeing it and it garners headlines in a few locations, but getting that out in thousands of locations is what is the goal, because then it's really unlocking the business value.
Yeah, and the other value prop, or the reason for edge native tools, besides giving that agility of how you create a modern app for the edge, but it's also letting those apps communicate with each other. So that's what I'm saying. So if you've got the license plate reader has confirmed this might be a person of interest, they could then feed off into other systems in the police car, make automated calls. Like, you want to have that kind of like closed loop or automated kickoff to other applications. And so for that, you really need to design these apps to be, having a common data plane or to communicate with each other. And that's where something like RabbitMQ can come in, and other tooling to make it easy to get these apps deployed and updated. And that's the other thing to consider at the edge, is that, this police car is running around everywhere. How do we get these modern apps shrunk down and only send the crucial bits of information, right? And like, as all that data is processed, also, how do we help then the police force who are sending this data back to their home base? How do we make sure they send the most efficient way possible, because of the limited bandwidth? How do we help them ship the metadata? Like, all those bits to make it easy to either store that to themselves or maybe to a public cloud where they might be doing some machine learning. So how do we feed this ecosystem to make sure like the data that you actually need and process is sent to the right place, and that the data that you need from one system can be fed into another app, so then give another closed loop real-time process.
And that data is what's driving all of this and the management of it. If I was to add, we've seen in other industries, e-commerce is an easy one to talk about, where things that have existed online in the cloud are now being extended to the edge. You think of picking up something in store, or you're walking in the store and they know your loyalty, your buying habits, what you were browsing, your size. That involves data being moved back and forth. So there's that extension. There's that extension out. There's also the local loop processing. We've given an example here about license plate recognition. But the key here is, and then there's actually pre-processing that data, driving best next task immediately. That's having apps talk to each other and apps communicating to humans through interfaces. And then there's also sending that data back, hopefully somewhat pared down and focused in, back into the cloud. A good example with video is, when you see it with responders, and you also see it in stores and systems, you want to click and almost mark video as of interest, and then get that up into case systems, get that into incident rooms as quickly as possible, rather than just keeping it on a hard disk, because then it can be used, analyzed immediately. And there are important things there, keeping the chain of custody there in this use case. So why don't I show a bit of the device edge? Just give me a second to grab the right screen. And we can show in detail a bit more how some of this orchestration's working.
But I think there's one thing to comment while Chaz is doing that. So, we're talking a lot about mobile edge, but like we said, this device edge can extend to other scenarios, other use cases that Chaz mentioned, like us getting to this small form factor, easy to deploy, easy to provide connectivity, easy to load apps. So we'd love to hear from you all, like other use cases to explore or other interesting things that you think we could do with this platform, besides enabling law enforcement.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marilyn. You can see my screen. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So this is the device edge UI. What you're seeing here is, I think that's good. That's stuck with it. Classic, starting with a dashboard. What you can see here is the status of the nodes we have out there. And if I show here, there's a filter. There's a lot of nodes that we have present. I jump to the mobile edge project. You can see here I have one of those Nexcom servers that we've been talking about that's hosting the prototype. And everything can be managed through this or through a command line, cloud-based command line. So it can be scripted and orchestrated. As well as basic info, I can talk about the adapters. So we can see what's running, what's connected. See, I have two modem connections here. One actually is connected to Vodafone. The other is EE. And then, so that's our connectivity. There's also Wi-Fi just down here at the moment, acting as an access point. And then what we have is application instances. So before I jump to that, we'll stick with this. So you have an application instance, and it can be, I'll show you how to deploy one in a minute. But what we have here is the virtual SD-WAN appliance, and we actually have a test Ubuntu instance that someone was applying whilst we were getting this up and running. So again, you can see the status of it, you can see storage, you can grab events and manage it. But it is as simple as going to what we call a marketplace. And you'll see there's lots of different applications. Marilyn mentioned RabbitMQ, we have Tanzu, our container runtime instances, the SD-WAN and Ubuntu images. So you can pick an app and literally say, do you want to add new ones, make it available? And then we can deploy. So I could pick anything on here, and I won't go the whole way, so we can just show the piece. And you can deploy it to an app. You can either deploy it to a project, so a whole area, a whole set of nodes at once, number of deployments, and then either using Cloud Init or other config. Let me just click on a few things. You can add in tags. We can add in integration. We've already integrated our SD-WAN orchestrator into this, so you can deploy an SD-WAN. It's registered in VMware's cloud orchestrator for that product and automatically registers. So there's the ability to do that with apps, and there's also the ability to do that with edge nodes. So again, I could take a piece of hardware, an Intel NUC, for example, deploy it. Either the credentials are on a TPM chip on there, or I get a certificate on a USB key, add it in here, add a certificate, upload, boom, it's done. So that's the bit that allows us to work in an untrusted area without credentials, without usernames and passwords, without needing to establish trusted VLANs beforehand. And then I don't probably need to do it for the purposes of this, but there's a lot of configuration in terms of networking, local networking, physical networking, and also the ability to map the devices to, map the adapters, so the inputs and outputs on these devices to the individual apps. So if I say that again slower, so it makes sense. What that means is if you've got an app that wants to use a port on one of these devices, if I show something a bit more representative of the automotive, if it's not going to do that. If you want to use a particular port and pass that to a specific app, so you might have a camera being fed straight into a certain container, or you might have a sensor going through a COM port through. That's what we can do with this solution. So we're really excited that, as I've said, if I was to sum this bit up, the device edge really allows us to do a number of things. It allows us to extend that management plane to a lot smaller pieces, but most importantly, it allows us to open up a huge amount of use cases and bring that value that VMware can bring to those businesses, to those verticals. So I'll just stop the screen sharing there. And yeah, I think if there's something to close on that piece, is it's all about the apps. It's all about working with ISVs, working with vendors who specialize in industries. That's absolutely how the work with police forces and responders came about with our partnership. We're working with Genoptic because they understand the space. They're delivering value. What we're doing is help innovation in that space and help agility.
Yeah, and to be clear, although we're talking a lot about law enforcement and specific use cases, like we definitely don't think it's just one of these applications, right? We keep talking about the platform should enable all types of edge native applications. Oh, and of course, existing, VM-based applications. And so we really see our solution kind of help driving and solving the business problems, and that's really kind of the driving force around really listening to our customers and tailoring our edge platform to solve for that. So what I'm trying to say is we're not trying to solve for just Snowflake use cases. We're providing a proper platform that'll enable a variety of use cases across different industries, and as Chas says, with all of our partners too. So that's what's really exciting about the edge, is that we can kind of offer a full solution. We get to learn about new use cases. We get to figure out how to handle all of this data and drive new business outcomes. So.
Cheers. Yeah, and everyone's at a different place in the journey. I think it's fair to say there's been a lot of modernization in the cloud, which now needs to grow out to the edge. There's been, the manufacturing verticals and even the utilities are new in some places to concepts like virtualization, but the benefits it's bringing in terms of reducing maintenance cycles or allowing rollback or allowing innovation, that's, absolutely, it's exciting to see. And as you said, it unlocks new opportunities for everyone. So thanks for listening. And as you said, there's some running around on the bottom, or you can catch us all at edgecomputestack@vmware.com.
I'll do one more quick plug, is you can also catch us next week at KubeCon Europe. I will be there, as well as all of the Tanzu team and the RabbitMQ team. And then our team, actually at the same time, we're also at the Hanover Messe Manufacturing Conference, also talking about our manufacturing solution with Edge Compute Stack. So we're traveling a lot a bit, so please email us, catch us at events. We're happy and here to help you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.